it's not that I love photos, it's that the photos are the gateway to our stories,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
gateway to learning more about our ancestors and where we come from. And it's just so important to know that. Even if you have a broken family or a broken past, it can really help you heal and understand your stories from a
Yeah.
different perspective.
Hey guys, welcome to episode number 241 of the Game On Girlfriend podcast. Today I am bringing you Haleh Shoa. She is the founder of Picturli, which is a business that organizes, curates, and establishes your photos in such a way that your family history, the preservation, all of it remains intact. You guys, this is one of my favorite interviews. Here's why. One, Haleh's story is completely connected to her as a human, what she's experienced, what she's gone through, and why photos are so important to her. Talk about that more when we get into her bio in just a minute. But the other thing I want you to listen for is how honestly she discusses what it is to be an entrepreneur, how you listen to nudges. I mean, here she was, this massive advertising executive, and when she started working with a life coach, yay coaches, she said, I really love putting together photo books. Now, not everyone would allow that to be the nudge necessary to start a business. But much like my favorite, J.K. Rowling, which we talk about during the episode, when you listen to nudges, you provide something extraordinary for the world. And I can't wait for you to hear what happened in a museum because Haleh listened to that nudge and started doing her work. Haleh firmly believes that our family histories and personal memories are some of the most valuable treasures we can have, and that preserving and sharing them is essential for future generations. She is now the founder and CEO of Picturli, a photo organization, curation, archiving, and design studio that helps families, individuals, and businesses transform their photo mess into one sortable digital strategy. Her passion for photo organizing stems from her family's history of being uprooted by the Iranian Revolution in 1979. Wait until she tells the story later on in the episode. While they were unable to bring most of their belongings to the US when they moved, they did manage to bring all of their photo albums and memorabilia. And now the only memories that remain from Holly's childhood are through her family photos and the stories shared with her through the collection that has been preserved. You guys, if you've been wondering, one, what to do with that mess of photos that's in your attic, your closet, under your bed, or in your storage room, you are going to love this episode. And two, if you are still in a corporate job and you freaking hate it, you are like, oh, dear heavens, what could I ever do? Today's episode is going to inspire you to listen to the nudges and look at what makes you happy because you really can start a business based on anything. Pop in those earphones and let's get to it. Haleh, welcome to the Game On Girlfriend podcast. We are going to talk about all things photos. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be so fun. So, listen, I've shared your bio with everybody. There's so many wonderful things that we're about to talk about. But before we dive in, I want to know from you of all the things that Haleh could have done on planet Earth, why is this what you do?
Well, actually, it really ties in with the beautiful space that you create for everyone and your clients. I had a big girl job in advertising. I was the director of operations for Jaguar Land Rover,
Dang.
and I was flying around the globe. And as I was doing that, I thought, okay, I love doing that. But
Mm.
it's like, okay, why can't I do this for myself? So I started working with a life coach.
Yay,
And
coaches. Love it.
Hey, coaches. And as you could see, my word receive, that was the hardest lesson for me, which is why it's so big. And every day I walk in, I'm
Mm.
like, receive, what do I want to receive today? And as I was
Yeah.
working with her, we dug deep and deep and deep. And she's like, what do you love doing? And it was doing photo books and gallery wall art for people
Mm.
and doing
Mm.
calendars, and she's like, okay, great, so let's work with that. And I was like, who's going to pay me to do that?
You're like, it's not a thing. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Thing, like, do people actually pay someone to do this?
Yeah.
Well, behold, 6 employees later, here we are.
That's amazing. How long have you been doing this? What was the year that you actually started?
I worked with my coach in 2015, and the idea was born in 2016.
Mm,
And as out the gate, I got probably the biggest client to date. She had a ginormous house full of photos.
okay.
And as at the same time, I got that job with JLR. And I was like, okay, what am I supposed to do? So I pulled my husband in, who was also in advertising, and he was great at doing the type of thing that we do in this business.
Mm,
And I was like, okay, so I'm gonna go do that while you work with her. And so that was in 2016. And as businesses in the beginning, they're wobbly. So
yes.
there's a lot of digging deep, there's a lot of trust, there's a
Mm,
lot of leaning in, there's so much faith that comes in. And you question yourself all the time when you start a new business. Am I doing the right thing? I still
yeah.
sometimes question
I was
myself,
just
right?
saying, I think that's every day. All of us are like, should I go work at Starbucks? Yeah. I mean, if we're going to tell the truth, right? It's hard.
And you got to take the really good with the really bad. It's kind of
Yes.
like, when things are really great and have 8 clients coming in at once, I go, "Okay, just calm down. This too shall pass."
It's so true. Yes. Yeah. But I love it. Do you just love photos? Like, what is it about actually creating like the photo books when you responded to your coach that way? And you're like, oh my gosh, I just love doing this thing. What is it about actually like, I think you use the word curated, which I love that word, but it's almost like,
Yeah,
is
that's my
that like, what
tagline.
is that?
Picturli.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, it stems from my own personal story. I'm Iranian, and I was about 9 years old when the Iranian Revolution broke out, and my parents were deciding, is this gonna last? Is this a real thing, or is this? Because in third world countries, things happen.
Right.
And my mom was like, "This feels really real, and I don't
Mm.
wanna stay." So they decided super last minute when, all the mayhem had already broken out to leave, and they left with nothing except the
Oh,
photos and the memorabilia. So
mm.
as I was working in advertising and there was like a slow period, I would take that because we had really high res scanners. I would take my photos into work and I start scanning them, and
Mm.
course, because of the revolution, I have family in 4 continents. And so I basically started doing things with our own family photos. And it really, like, I would get my cousins calling, going, "Where did you get these photos? We've never seen them."
Ah.
So that was the beginning. And it's not that I love photos, is that the photos are the gateway to our stories,
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
gateway to learning more about our ancestors and where we come from. And it's just so important to know that even if you have a broken family or a broken past, it can really help you heal and understand your stories from a
Yeah.
different perspective.
Mm.
So, yeah, and that's the soul of why I started this business.
I mean, I don't even know how to follow that up, Holly. Like that is like talk about a why, right? I mean, I so appreciate what you said. Third world countries, we all know things can happen and they can happen anywhere, right? I mean, we are just seeing that it really can and honoring what matters most to us. I mean, what an extraordinary why. I'm
Thank
really, really impressed with that. Yeah. I mean, that
you.
really
Yeah,
connect. I can't imagine anyone with a family. I've moved a lot too, right? Of our own children and the phases they go through about how much that matters.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. And so when you got started and you're like, I've got a why that's like, this, this huge why over here, right? What did you do? Like, how did you get started? How did you actually take this idea? And all of you out there who are like, I don't really know if I can start a business around stuff. I want you to hear what she says, right? Like,
Yeah.
how did you take this idea of like, I love doing photo books and take that first step to turning it into what you do as a career?
Yeah, so the business really morphed, and it's still morphing. And and anytime you start a business, you really have to go with the energy of its growth and its changes, right?
Mm.
So I was like, I only want to do photo books. So I started with a client and she's like, I don't want you to do photo books right now. I have a house full of photos that need to be organized and archived. And I was like, "Uh-oh, I organize an archive. I need to organize an archive about 45,000 photos."
Holy cannoli, 45,000?
Oh, yeah, that's not the
Wow.
largest, actually. Yeah, the largest is 125,000.
Holy flip. Wow. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. That just kind of took my breath away.
Yeah,
as you
yeah.
were?
No, there are families who have literally generations of photos that have been passed down,
Got it.
and never curated it, which is why I talk about curation. But
Mm,
we'll get to that. So I learned, so there's different aspects to my business and what I provide. There's the analog to digital, organizing it, curating it before you scan it. And we organize everything chronologically so
hmm.
that it's like it's chronological when I give the actual assets back to the client, and it's chronological when we digitize it too. And then there's the what do I do with my iCloud, Dropbox, Google Drive, all
Yeah.
that. So there's the digital aspect of what we do, all the
Mm,
things that are on old hard drives, old computers, CDs, DVDs, all the digital files that we don't know how to bring together. So that was another university of photo organizing that I had to learn.
I can imagine.
And
Wow.
then it was like the creative stuff, which is really what is, the part of me that, when you're creating something, you just feel like you're so in the flow.
Yes.
All of a sudden, 8 hours have passed, and you're like, oh my God, I have so much energy. And that's the part that is aligned with my soul. Is like, oh my God, I love
Mm,
creating photo
mm,
books and things like that.
mhm.
So it was the other two that were necessary. So there's three aspects of what I did, but how you start a business is you go with the need of like you listen and listen, right? You listen with
Yes.
your heart, but you also like need to hear what the client's saying. And when the client was like, I don't need a photo book right this second, but this is what I need, you kind of pivot and go, okay, this is tangential to what I'm trying to do. So I need to learn this. So
Mhm.
that's one aspect of it. And then another aspect is to really get out of your own way and share the love and the excitement with everyone that you know. I know it just kind of goes, well, I don't really want to be on social media, or I don't really want to talk about myself. I think a lot of women in particular get really shy about shining their light and what
Yes.
they're creating,
Mm,
right?
mhm.
It's really getting out of your way and putting the energy forth of you helping someone rather than you boasting what you're doing. It's a different energy, right?
Yes,
It's like,
totally.
okay, I'm just going to talk about this because I really believe that it helps someone. Not I'm going to talk about this because I'm doing this.
Oh, get it, sister. Yes, 100%. Oh my gosh. That is so
So,
good. So you literally like took for I bet your background in advertising was helpful too, but that
yes,
you took that first step of like, I'm going to help you do this. And they were like, actually, I need help with this. That you
yes,
listened, you heard, and you led with service is what I'm
yes.
hearing,
That's
honestly.
right. When you dig deep and you're like, why did I choose this human experience?
Seriously. Yes.
And for me, it's really about service. That's when I
Mm,
feel at most like I could just fly, is when I am
mm,
helping someone. That's my love language, is that I can help you, then I'm good.
I
So
love it.
it all makes sense. Like you put all the pieces of the puzzle together. And of course, like, 8 years later, it all made sense that this is what I'm doing. I love
Mm,
doing this for my family. I am of service. So it's really putting the pieces of the puzzle together and figuring out your why, and then forget the how. The how doesn't matter. The how is just trial and error. I'm still doing trial and error. Like
yeah.
this year, like I'm gonna go this way with my marketing efforts. So, you just have to lean into different directions as you go.
Yeah. Well, the how changes too. I love what you're saying because the how changes. I mean, there can be a new technology invented. There's a new trend. People are starting to value things differently. That happens all the time. So the how and being flexible around the how, I think, is just critical. I'm really grateful you mentioned that. Yeah. I don't think enough people talk about that. And I think it really can hold people back of like, well, I have to have a 19-point plan. And it's like, but it might blow up in 3 months. So just start
Yeah.
doing. And that's how you'll learn. I love
Yes,
it.
exactly. And the first 3 points may not be aligned to what the energy of what you're trying to create. So you're gonna keep banging your head against the wall saying, "Well, this is the 19-point plan that I have." It's like, just feel it. You gotta feel it in your body. Kinetic energy tells you a lot, actually.
Yeah, I love we're getting like kinetic business development. You're welcome. Right, but it's true. Like our bodies have all the answers and we all know. We all know you're like this feels terrible and you're
Yes.
not sure why, but I think what you're talking about there is really important. Sometimes we get so like rigid about how it's supposed to go that we actually aren't even open to some of the opportunities. Like, look at that massive opportunity you had with that very first client to
Yeah.
learn this new skill to now to be able to serve at even a higher level. And if you'd been
Yes.
like, nope, I only do books, you would have missed that. Yeah.
Yes.
Really great.
And other lessons along the way for anyone who wants to do their own business is you got to know that a no is sometimes a gift. Actually, a no is always a gift. When you really like want that client or want that project and the door closes, just understand that that happened for a reason and it happened for you, not to
Mm,
you. So,
yes.
and we all know this by looking back, the first client I didn't get who I really wanted, I came home sobbing, like, I can't believe this, like just like anything, just like the first apartment I didn't get that I really wanted. But it's like you look back and you're like, but the apartment I got was so amazing. And it was really, that's why I didn't get that first one, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
it's really about leaning in, having faith, and trusting that what is happening for you and not to you.
So agree with that. And I think too, as time goes on, I'd love to know what you think about this as a business owner, because I feel like as time goes on, when you get the no, you immediately go to, okay, thank you. Because you know something awesome is about to happen, or
Yes.
you're going to get that much more clear about what you actually want to be doing. So good. I really appreciate what you just said. And you just took me back to New York City and an apartment I never got. And now I'm remembering that. And boy, did that turn out well. Just more proof that Holly is speaking the truth. I love it. I love it. Oh, so
Well,
good.
these are universal energy rules, right? It's like, it's all the things, the trial and errors and of course, it's easier said when you already have a business and you
Yeah.
already have clients.
Yeah.
And one client who you really wanted said no. If you have zero clients and that one says no, it's much more devastating. But that is part of it. That's
Mhm.
just part of it. It's like
Yeah.
when you're learning how to walk, you're going to fall a lot.
A
And
lot.
a lot.
Yeah. That is though. I really appreciate that you acknowledge that, because those first couple, especially when you're nervous and you're like, "Oh dear God, is this going to work?" And I've left my job or I've got to get out of my job, right? Either one of those pressures, and somebody does say no, to really give yourself the space to keep moving through that and understand it really is part of the process, right? Could you imagine if every time everyone was like, "I'm going to do a thing," and like $1 million falls on their head in the next minute? Like, one, how much none of us would know. We would never learn anything. Right, and there'd be a whole bunch of really crazy businesses out there if that were the case, I think, but the things that we
Yeah.
learn along the way, yeah.
Yes,
So,
and actually, sometimes I feel sad for those who get that thing right away because they think, "Oh, this is the way it's supposed to be," you know?
mm,
And
mhm.
it's like, "Ooh, that's like it's gonna be a big lesson later, and it's gonna hurt even more."
That's actually a really good point. Yeah, because it is all of this is part of it, right? Where this what we do as entrepreneurs is, I would say it's not armchair activity. You can't like sit back and go, well, we're gonna do that. Like you've got to get in it and get on it. And it's hard. And there's fantastic months, those never last. And there's really bad months, and those never
And
last.
those never
Right.
last.
Right, but like the trajectory is constantly moving up. And I think the appreciation and the humility around that experience is so important. And boy, does it build character. I think this is why I love hanging out with
Yes.
entrepreneurs so much. We're so freaking humble because we have been hammered. We're just like,
And constantly being it's like when you don't have business, you're crying. When it flows in, you're like, "Oh my God, okay, well, I don't have space." Like last year, I broke my knee. I
oh
got
my gosh.
got 8 new clients. This is like back to back to back. The universe is like, "Okay, you want it? Here you go."
Here we go.
And then all of a sudden, like, and we have to move. Like, we have to move. So all of the openings, leaning ins, asking,
Mm,
receiving, all of those lessons that I learned from my life coach, I'm like, I got to practice all of those things because I need help. I need all of it.
yeah, no, we all do. And it is there's like a shared humanity or a shared recognition. We all share the same humanity, but there's a shared recognition, I think, amongst entrepreneurs of just like, hey, how did you get beat up this year? Well, here it's like that thing, but boy, is it worth it, right? Like it is so worth it. And I would love to know, Holly, like, what is the most amazing thing somebody has said to you after they work with you and they're like, their photos are organized, everything's digitized, they've got beautiful stuff. Like, what happens for people who work with you?
Well, they have access to their entire story and history through
Mm,
film. It's not just photographs, it's also videos and films that we digitize and
wow.
transfer. Yeah, it's like, there's not a tear. I cry with them. There's not a tear. I cry when I'm, like, learning about their stories, and I'm not the crier,
Mm,
but it just is it's so incredible to learn someone's story and for them to be able to, like, now have access
mm,
to it. One of my
mm.
first clients, he is an African American who is an African American historian, and
Oh,
his
wow.
family, his lineage is from the North. So they had letters and photographs going back to the 1800s, which is
Wow.
really, really rare for
Yeah,
African Americans, right?
absolutely. Yeah.
But he wanted to do all the letters from his grandfather, yeah,
Oh, I just
grandfather to
got
his
chills.
grandmother. Oh my
Mm,
God, check out this story. It's so crazy. And there's so many of these stories that we don't have time for all of them, but this is like, so we did all the letters and he gave us permission because true archiving is you just scan it as is, but he gave us
okay.
permission to up the contrast so we could read the letters a little bit.
Oh,
And
wow.
so we retouched the letters a little bit in post-production so we could read it, and it was just like the
Oh,
fonts that they wrote with, it was so beautiful. And he
wow.
decided to donate all of these to the Schoenberg Institute. So the Schoenberg Institute gives them a call 3 weeks later and says, "Your grandfather had another family, and they just donated those letters to us."
Oh my, like I like teared up. Like I have head to toe chills. And that's
I
like a
mean,
movie, right? Oh, by the
yeah,
way,
because
grandpa had a whole other family. It's like, what? But wow, what a story.
it's such a crazy story, and he wasn't that attached. He wasn't devastated that that had happened. He thought it was
Right.
really interesting. I mean, he's a historian. He thought it was really fascinating that I mean, what are the odds of that family also don't I mean, what are the
I
odds?
mean, come on. And all of that happened. I just have to acknowledge something here because I love the stories when women lean into nudges like, I don't know, I really like putting photo books together, right? You lean into that nudge and look at the long-term result of that. And we
Yes.
never know where that's gonna take us. That is extraordinary. I think that's one of my favorite, like, you never know where your dreams are going to affect the world stories ever. That might be one of my favorites. That is
Yeah,
gorgeous, and it's because you listened. Like, you wanna
yeah,
get that too, right? Like, we think that our stories are no big deal. I say that about JK Rowling all the time. Like, she saw this picture of this boy with glasses and a scar, like, saw it in her mind's eye while she was on a train. She goes, "Huh, I wonder what his story is." She could have dropped that and we never would have had Harry Potter, right? You could have been like, well, I'm in advertising. I'm fine. This photo book thing's a hobby. It's amazing what happens when we lean in and what you provide the world when you do. Very
yes,
cool.
absolutely.
Very cool.
And
Okay, so let's take this. If someone's listening and they're like, "Oh my gosh, my grandmother just passed away," and there's like boxes of photos, and they're like, "I can't believe I'm listening to this podcast. This is amazing. I need to call Haleh." Like, what is the process like when someone wants to work with you?
yeah, so with the digital or analog, the first thing that happens is we have to gather everything.
Okay.
So for all the photos, the albums, the scrapbooks, the films, the videos, whatever it is, don't forget the images on the walls. A lot of times the framed photos are the most important photos. And a lot of
Right.
people go, "Oh, wait, my great grandparents are on this wall." And which is why we go to a lot of times we go to our client's home or Zoom with them because we serve clients all over the world.
I love
But we
it.
Zoom with them and I ask them to walk around the house and I go, "Well, what about that? Is that a piece of art something that your family did?" So we also do artwork. So the
Wow.
first step is to gather everything.
Okay.
And then to have a goal. Like a lot of times, we have clients who really want to keep everything and we don't recommend that. And then we have clients who are like, I don't know, you can throw everything out after you're done. We also don't recommend that.
Mm, right.
But and that's where the curation comes in. So the next step is we learn about their family, birthdays, date of passings, weddings, and we do a family chart. And
Cool.
yeah, every single client, there's all these family charts that are taped on our walls in the studio because we make sure that as we're curating and organizing, we're doing it chronologically.
Mm,
Now we could just say 1880s, 1890s, or we could say, okay, let's dig into the 1880s and figure out is this 86 or 83? So some clients don't care and that's plenty for them, or even the late 1800s is plenty for them. And some clients want to get really granular. But so
like, it
we
was a
organize.
Tuesday, right?
Yeah,
Like, oh my
exactly.
god, I love this. Okay. Okay, so you'll work
Yeah.
either way.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And it all depends on budget. It takes a lot longer for us to get
Mm,
granular, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
can
then once
totally get that.
everything is organized, we digitize it and we rename and redate all the files because I never want to give a client 10,000 assets that are named IMG 234 that's dated, August of 2024. Like,
Mhm.
you don't want that. You want your things to make sense. So we make sense. We're not just a scanning agency. We make sure that we understand your story and we apply that to your assets. So,
Mm.
and that's the difference of really working with someone who has the breadth of experience that I do and that my team does.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Gorgeous. Okay, I love it. And are you still actually doing photo books? Like really actually turning over photo books to
Yes. So
humans?
my team does the digital and analog organizing, and they do all the archiving and all the boxing up because we box everything in archival boxes when we're done to send it back to our clients. And I do all the creative because I just love it. And I wanted to hire because it gets really busy to run the
Yeah.
business and do the but I just love it. And I'm like, you know what? This is what really brings me joy. I just finished a photo book of a client who used the photo book to propose to his girlfriend of 5 years.
Oh, I just got chills. Oh my
And
gosh.
come on. It's like, okay. And
Hello.
I really dig in and do things very differently. So
Mm.
I was asking him questions and I'm like, how did you guys meet? Oh, we met on Instagram. We both were at USC. And I was like, do you still have that first exchange of your Instagram and
Oh,
of your text? So the first page of the book, I recreated their entire exchange in
oh,
Instagram and on text of him saying, can I have your phone number? Let's move this to text. And she was like, haha, like I recreated the whole thing with misspellings and everything. It was so
love
cute.
it. I love it. Oh my God, that's so exciting. I mean, oh my gosh. I think you're doing something really valuable, obviously. Like, I think we got that around the photos and the whole idea, of course. But I think in a world where everything feels so transactional and we feel like digital can just disappear in 2 seconds, this
And
is
again,
just so beautiful. It can, absolutely. It's gone, right? And then I don't want to say we've accepted that, but it's like, oh, well, right. And I think to take this pause, to take this moment, to take this time and attention to actually curate what our memories are and our stories, like this is
yeah.
so beautiful. I love this so much. Hmm.
Yes. And if you're listening, you're worth it.
Ah,
You're worth it.
yes.
Yes.
I'm going to go even further. Say if you're listening to this podcast, this one's for you. It's not an accident. I don't think it's ever an accident. The ones that we end up listening to, right? So, Holly, listen, if someone is like sitting here going, oh, dear heavens, I have got to do this. How can people find you? How can people reach you?
On our website. Yeah, absolutely. Do you want
Okay.
me to say it
Awesome.
or
Sure. You absolutely can share your website here. We'll totally have the link, underneath this video for those watching on YouTube and in the show notes for those who are listening in. But in addition to that, I believe there's also a gift that's on your website as well that we'll link to. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wanted people to really get inspired and take action. So I created a 7-step guide to organizing your photos. And it has a little bit of tools in there that we use. And it's really great. And I hope that, you take the first step to at least get inspired by this guide. So if you
Love it.
sign up on our newsletter, you will receive the guide.
I love it. You guys definitely go grab that. I agree with Holly completely. You are worth it. You deserve it. Your photos deserve it. I just really want to thank you for showing up on the podcast today and for reminding all of us that our stories are still out there and we can recreate them. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.